Okay.
I say it's 1:30.
Yes.
I think everybody is here, so I'll get started. Oh no, somebody just came in. Anybody in the hallway out there? No?
Go ahead and shut that door right there.
Okay, so you're here to learn about getting ready for a honey show. All right, honey shows are just like a Formula One race. The best one wins. Wrong. Honey shows are about marketing. You're going to say, huh? Marketing? All right. Come with me. We have 2 trips to take. Will you come with me?
Yes.
We're going to the grocery store because you want to buy a can of tuna fish. So you go to the shelf, you get the can, it's dented. So you put it up and take the one behind it that's not dented. And don't tell me you don't, because you do. Well, now you want to get something to drink. Okay. That one doesn't look like it's filled quite as much as that one, so I'm going to take that one. Right? Don't tell me you don't, because you do. Marketing. And that is what honey shows are about. Marketing, and now we'll see why. This is very awkward for me because I have to turn around and see what I'm doing. All right. This is the golden rule. The bees make an absolutely incredibly beautiful product. Honey, right?
Right.
It takes a beekeeper to muck it up. All right. First of all, you will read the rules. All right. Yeah. Read the rules. I mean it. When you get them, and maybe they'll be ready early in the year, say January, and there is kind of a request to have those rules ready early enough so that you who want to enter can see and plan ahead, because bee season is coming. And you're going to decide which classes you're going to enter. Now, that's all very fine. That assumes that your bees will still be alive, and that the weather will cooperate, that you don't have a drought and the blossoms dry up, or too much rain and the bees sit at home and do nothing. So it kind of depends on whether you get a honey crop or not. So think about preparing kind of ahead of time. Keep up with any rule changes. Don't sit back and say, oh yeah, I read them months ago, in case there is a change. Keep up. It's your responsibility. Read the rules. That's all we ask. Well, follow the rules. Once you've read them, good heavens. Why? Because it's a level playing field. If you sat down to watch a football game and the coach said to the team, we've got a really rough opposing team, so I'm going to put 3 extra men on the field today. And you're saying, wait a minute, that's not fair. No, it isn't fair. You follow the rules for a level playing field. And don't ask for an exception. I I brought this and I want to put it in the show. Well, there's no class for it. We'll make a class. Well, I can't do that because nobody else knows about it. I don't see why. And believe me, when you've been through lots of honey shows, you've met. Can I have an exception? And don't be offended if the answer is no. You should have read the rules and followed the rules, okay? So that's your responsibility. So, across the US, in shows, there are some really archaic criteria that I wish I could wave a magic wand and do away with. And these are ones that I'm afraid I can't, because some people are just stuck with some things that really aren't all that useful. The quality of glass in jars. Yes, it is bad quality, worse than it was 100 years ago. And I can tell you real quick why the quality of glass isn't as good as it used to be. One is glass manufacturers, such as Gamber Glass, are required to use recycled glass, a certain percent of recycled glass. Now think about the stuff you recycle in the way of glassware. Just think about it over the year. What have you thrown into the glass recycle bin? Well, some of that is going to go into what the glass manufacturers have to use. In addition, somebody comes along and recycles their glass and a ceramic coffee mug. Well, you know, you drink out of a glass and you throw a glass in. You drink out of a coffee mug, yeah, that can go in a glass. Unfortunately, ceramic melts at a very high temperature, higher than glass. So it gets all ground up and then melted and made into a nice honey jar. And in that honey jar glass are little tiny, tiny crumbs of recycled coffee mug. Now, Gamber has to tolerate a certain number of those or go out of business. So they remelt the really bad ones. But any of the glass manufacturers, whether it's Gamber or any other company using recycled glass, has to put up with some imperfections. Any judge that takes off for glass imperfections should have to pick all of the recycled coffee mugs out of the recycle bin. Flavors are unpleasant to the judge. Anybody that marks down for flavors that they don't like should not be a judge. I have judged many, many places. Are there any honeys I don't like? Yeah. In southern Maryland, the understory tree is American holly. The beekeepers there make honey off of American holly when it blooms. To me, it tastes like glue, but I recognize the taste of the holly honey. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean that they don't like it. To them, in southern Maryland, it's the most delicious honey they can possibly produce. The same thing goes with basswood honey, buckwheat honey. There are lots of honeys. There is a honey for everybody, and that's great. But a judge should never take down because I don't like the taste. No, we are looking for things that you did in processing, such as the time I opened a jar and somebody had used, this is some years ago, any of you that remember Vigo, the original Vigo, horrible? Well, they evidently put it on their fuel board, put the fuel board on and went and had lunch and came back after lunch. When I opened the jar, I had to go take a walk before I got to the next one. It was a fault of processing. People that, I think I'll warm this up and you taste it and it tastes exactly like burnt toast. Processing. So think about the things that you do that are going to affect what honey should really taste like. So any judge that marks down, I don't like the taste, that is not the way to do it. Honey on the underside of the lid. Marketing. Somebody goes to a shop, to a farmer's market, buys a jar of honey, takes it, throws it in their bag, throws a cabbage on top of it, a couple of tomatoes and things. Is there honey on the underside of the lid? There sure is. Does the customer mind? No. They know there's honey on the underside of the lid. They know there's spaghetti sauce on the underside of the spaghetti sauce jar lid. They don't mind that. What they do mind is a sticky jar. You ever bought something at a store of any kind and got your fingers wet, sticky, greasy? You don't like it. So, honey on the underside of the lid? I don't care. In fact, I pick up some faults there. Watery cappings. This is absolutely nutty. It's not, has nothing to do with water. It has to do with some bees like to fill the cell full and then put the cap on. The honey touches the cap. Is it water? No, it's honey. That is a full cell of honey. There are some bees that fill the cell and leave an air gap and then cap it. And that capping is white. Now, whose fault are watery cappings? The bees. It's not you. It's the bees. Why are we marking down things with watery cappings? I think it ought to be done away with, but who am I? A small voice in the wilderness of judges. All right, let's go on. Let's have a look at judging criteria and think about what you can do. Density. You see density on your score sheet. It means the water content. And this really is an important thing. Below 15%, it is too thick, too viscous for any table honey. You can stick a knife in it upright and come back an hour later and it's still upright. You go to put it on a piece of toast, it will tear up your toast. It will totally destroy a biscuit. It's used for blending. We'll see why in just a second. Above 18.6%. Why is that the magic number? It's the magic number because of the possibility of fermentation. Yes, there are wild yeasts out there. There's some in this room right now. They're everywhere. And they are in your honey, and we eat them, and we're just fine. We're fine, healthy. They're not detrimental, they're just there. You live with them. But they can cause fermentation in honey that has a higher water content. And I'll tell you something. a jar of fermenting honey makes you think that a mouse has just died in your walls and you don't know where, it is really stinky. It's used for blending. Now look, you got some that's too dry, some that's too wet. You blend together, and you then have a nice spittable honey. And yes, that's what the commercial people do. They blend. So, how can you find the density? Well, with a refractometer. Big name for a very nice little instrument. And there are refractometers for all kinds of things, but one for honey is specifically for honey. You can buy one. They can be cheap. If you have a cheap one, you might want to have it checked against one of the more expensive ones. The beekeeping equipment catalogs have it, but maybe you could borrow one. Maybe your local club has one. So, or maybe somebody in your local club would do a program in the autumn with all the members of the club bringing a small sample of their honey and have it checked for its density, for its water content. Makes a great meeting. It really does. I do it with my club, and we have lots of fun. Blending, you can, especially with your honey, say below about 15%, it's okay to warm it gently to make it flow a little bit better. You want to mix it very well. And you want to mix without incorporating any air, because air equals air bubbles. You don't want those in your honey. So if you have honey that is too dry, honey that is too wet, blend it, but please. I did judge a jar one time in which it was interesting and it was beautiful, and they didn't blend it very well because it looked kind of like a marble. Round marble. All right. Absence of crystals. And here's where we get you. The whole thing may solidify into something resembling a brick. That's a possibility with some honeys. And you don't know exactly too much about your honey because you've got hives, and watch at the entrance sometime. Hive A will fly in that direction. Hive B, sitting next to it, will fly in that direction. They're going to different sources, but when they come back, you'll be taking supers off, uncapping, and basically blending your honey as you uncap and extract. Well, you don't know if it's going to turn into hard as a brick, or turn into sort of a slush, or it can become hard as a rock, and can also appear just weird looking with strings of crystals through it, or you can have great big chunks or little chunks on the bottom. Now, I want you to still be thinking about marketing, marketing, marketing. Perception. It's spoiled. It's done something weird. It's done something funny. So, the perception of the person buying that honey. Remember the dented tuna fish fin or something that looks bubbly when it shouldn't? Crystals. You don't know the source of nectar. You really don't. But the higher the glucose content of the honey, the more apt you are to have crystals. Can you stop it? Yeah, you can. Don't ever store it in a nice, cool place. 57 degrees is the ideal temperature for forming crystals. So, room temperature, good. And you can freeze, which will delay crystallization. So as there are other reasons on crystals. Let's see. They come back to cleanliness. Crystallization is a very fascinating chemical property. It has many mysteries still after all these centuries of scientists studying crystals. Without lint, and you'll see that on score sheets, lint is little tiny fibers from everything. You know, there's dust in the air, but very especially from paper and cloth. Lint is the nucleus, the start of crystals. So, without dirt. Dirt is also a nucleus for crystals. What's dirt? Dirt are the mystery things when you're judging and you look at a jar and say, what's that? It's just some weird little bit of black wiggly, and you put it down as dirt. Where did it come from? Who knows? But it, again, a nucleus for crystallization. Then there are mystery items. Things that you look at and you think, I don't really know what it is in the honey, but there's something in there that shouldn't be. On crystals and on that lint, if you want clean jars, clean your dirty dishes from having ravioli or mashed potatoes and gravy or something. Clean your dirty dishes. Then put your honey jars in the dishwasher. Shut it up and wash them. And let them dry in the dishwasher because it's going to be an air dry. If you dry your honey jars with a towel, and I don't care how fine and exquisite a tea towel you have, it's got lint, and it's going to leave it in there. And a paper towel is worse because you are putting the lint into it, and I, as a judge, will find it. So think about letting them air dry. You can take them out and store them face down so they don't sit upright and catch dust and mystery floating particles in the air. A friend of mine who packs a lot of honey has a small, cheap dishwasher in his honey house where he washes his jars, lets them dry in there, leaves it closed. When he's ready to bottle, they're all ready. They've been dried in the dishwasher and left in there which you can't really do in your home dishwasher because you need it for tomorrow night's dirty dinner dishes.
Quick question.
Yes.
What would you store the jars in after you get them on the dishwasher? Would you put them in a plastic tub and seal it, or?
Just, yeah, you can just store in some sort of tub face down.
Yeah.
Yeah, but keep,
not in a box or anything like that, because that has fibers.
the box does have fibers, and generally in the cardboard boxes that honey jars come in, it's fairly hard pressed stuff.
Okay.
And if they go in there dry, upside down, they aren't too bad.
Okay.
Yeah, I have stored many in the boxes that the jars have come in upside down
Okay.
and have done fine.
Okay.
Yes.
Why is the lint a nucleus for crystals? Is that something it attaches to, and that's why it starts the crystallization?
Yes, crystallization, which I don't want to get into because of time. What time am I supposed to finish? I think 2:15. Now we've got to roll it. Crystals love to have something to form around. They can form around nothing, but if something is in there, it's a lot easier. And that is chemistry of crystallization in a simple sentence. Okay? Yeah. Hmm?
Like a pearl.
Yeah, exactly. The pearl isn't going to form without that nucleus. Yes. And that's how they tell real ones from fake ones. Okay, your lint. And I said those, so we can go on. We're talking about without wax. You're a beekeeper. Everything's got wax on it. Beeswax here and flakes there, and on your clothes and in your kitchen and everywhere. Just, that's what happens when you're a beekeeper. To the customer who opens a jar and finds flakes of wax floating on top, ew, it's dirt. It's not honey. And there's no point in saying, you're putting a little sign, this jar contains wax, because the customer will say, ooh, I don't want wax. So, without foam, and that is something you really don't want. Marketing, just think about marketing. Suppose you went to buy some food. You get it home and you open the jar and it's foamy. What's your first thought? You want this it's spoiled. Right. So even though your foam may be air bubbles, what does the customer see? It's spoiled. And throw it out. Well, they'll come back and buy another jar, but they may not buy your honey because your honey's spoiled, is now in the trash, full jar of honey. So, what are you going to do? First, learn to fill a jar. If you've got a gate, I really need 4 hands for this, but learn to, is it okay as a honey jar? Okay. Learn to tip the jar slightly so that it's going to run in. And then as it gets full, you'll be tipping it back upright to finish the last. Because if you fill this way and the honey goes boom straight down, it's carrying air with it. There's a lot of air around it. The next time you bottle a jar of honey, concentrate on the difference between letting it go straight down with all that air and filling up. Now you've got all kinds of foam throughout. And tip, let it run in, and as it, going the wrong way, it runs in, and as it fills, you're straightening. It can be done. It can become a very natural motion of getting the jar upright. And it will become just second nature, and that's how you do it. Overfill slightly. Allow to sit for a day. And then come back and either with a knife or a spoon, just scoop it, the foam off. And you'll have a nice looking product. Wax flakes and foam. Let it sit for a day or two, and remove wax flakes and foam. If you learn to tip it, you will find that you won't need to overfill slightly and then remove. You really do. I have done it for years. It does work. It becomes just second nature. You can sit and talk to people and do it and watch something on television and do it. Really. Okay. Unfortunately, we've got a conflict of words. I'm talking about straining because most small-scale beekeepers will be straining their honey. In the honey world, filtering is a special language. Filtering is flash heat, pump through a micropore filter and flash cool, and then onto the bottling. It is an industrial process that has flash heating and flash cooling. That will take care of all kinds of foam and crystals and things. It is a commercial step. So if some customer asks you, has this been filtered? You can say, no, it hasn't, unless you use the actual true filtering process. What you do is straining. So get some nice fine filters. They sell them. The vendors are here. They probably have had some on display. I haven't had a chance to look at all the vendor things, so I don't know. But you can use a coarse straining to get out the parts of bees and the lumps of wax and bits of whatever, and then through a fine strainer. Unfortunately, some people call those strainers filters. Well, in the honey world, that's really a conflict of language. Too bad. Flavor. Fermented. It tastes kind of winey, yeasty. And you don't want that, you don't want to sell it. It's fermented, it is disqualified. It is not a marketable product. It is going to do something absolutely disgusting in a few days or weeks, which is foam out of the honey jar and drool fermented honey over wherever your customer has put the jar. Not good for your image. Affected by processing. Bee repellents. If you use bee repellents to chase your bees down, be careful with them. You don't want that odor in your honey. So learn to use those repellents and work as quick as you can. Don't let the fume boards sit on those hives longer than necessary. scorched. You decided you'd heat it up to get rid of all those crystals and all that foam. It's going to be much easier to just heat it up. And you got sidetracked and scorched it. Well, you come back, looks clean, smells vaguely like burnt toast. You go ahead and bottle it. Not a marketable product. There is no plant out there that the bees have visited that has a scorched flavor, really. Your container, lid damaged. Remember the tuna fish can from the beginning that I talked about, that you put back on the shelf? The lid is dinged? No. So I'll mark it down for lid. Container sticky. No shopper wants to get fingers sticky or slimy or greasy or crummy. They really don't. Think about sometime when you've gone shopping for something and it had gotten sticky fingers. What do? You'll have a sticky steering wheel on the way home, and dirt collects on sticky, really does. So if you get your threads of the jar sticky with honey, I will find it. Because what happens, picture in your mind a jar with the threads on it, and you've gotten the threads sticky, and you put the cap on, and the day is humid, and the humidity is water, and it starts to creep into those threads and liquefy the honey, which then very slightly and slowly drools down on the jar, so that right underneath the threads, the jar gets sticky because your sticky threads have drooled on it. And that is not good marketing. Don't get your threads sticky. I'll find it. I guarantee you I'll find them. Accuracy of filling. No visible gap between the end of the lid and the surface of the honey. Well, let's look at accuracy of filling. Look at your honey label. If it says 1 pound honey, the jars are designed to hold 1 pound of honey when filled over the bead. A bead of glass goes round and round and round. Threads on the jar go up and down. You screw a jar lid down and you unscrew a jar lid up. Those are the threads. The bead, remember, goes round and round. They are designed to hold 1 pound of honey when filled over the bead. Remember when we went to the supermarket to get the tin of tuna fish and the bottle with a drink in it? And you didn't take the one that wasn't quite as full looking. If you fill below the gap, you have cheated your customer, and that's illegal because your label says 1 pound and you didn't give them 1 pound. So a 1/2 inch maximum to about 3/8 maximum down from the top. Because if you overfilled and it's up to almost the top of the jar, you're giving your customer too much for their money, and that's stupid. So it's also messy because the customer gets the jar home, takes the cap off, it's up to the top, and any little motion and the honey splashes over the side of the jar. Now she's got sticky hands, honey drooling down the side of the jar, getting on the kitchen counter, and the kids are screaming. Well, you've got an unhappy customer. So fill is important, and that's bee space down from the top. Uniformity of filling, this is in your future at the honey show. I don't know when, but if it goes up to you're entering 3 jars or 4 jars or 6 jars to make one entry, every one of those jars will be opened and they should be filled to the same amount, because they should be to deliver that 1 pound to your customer. I realize that there are other sizes of jars, like 12-ounce ones, different types. There's hex jars, and even on pint jars, 5-pound jars, all kinds of things. But there is definitely a consistency of fill. And when you have to enter multiple jars, that's what we're looking for, that you can fill consistently every time. Think back to that bottle of juice that you were going to buy when you turned down the dented tuna fish can and went to get something to drink. You didn't take the short one. You took the one that looked full. Creamed honey. It's a lovely product. It does not slide off a peanut butter sandwich. It doesn't. It's great stuff. Fineness of crystals. It should resemble butter. If you want to compare yours, put a little bit of butter on your tongue, slide your tongue around. Try your creamed honey, slide your tongue around. If it's as smooth as butter, it's perfect. Uniformity and firmness. If it is too firm, you can't get it out of the jar. And it'll tear up your piece of toast if you do manage to get some out. If it is drooly and almost like liquid honey, why did you bother trying to make it? You might as well just do liquid honey, much less effort. Cleanliness, freedom from foam. Creamed honey, if you mistreat pouring it into your jars or mistreat mixing your seed crystal in, you will get foam in it. And foam with creamed honey has an effect of putting horrible looking marks along the sides of the jar, and the customer is going to look at that and say, ooh, it's spoiled, or a lot of foam on top. So the flavor, again, should not taste scorched. Do I have a few more minutes?
You have about 6 minutes left. 6.
Okay, thanks. Good. So, use the dice process. Study it, learn it, and practice it. It really needs to be practiced. The starter of this crystallization, we're back on crystallization, which is a complicated process. but the seed starter, and some call it the seed, some call it the starter, that's okay, either one, has to be very fine crystals. If you put in too coarse crystals, you're going to get coarse crystals. Crunchy. And customers really don't like crunchy honey. You as a beekeeper will eat crunchy honey because it's honey, it's off your hive, you knew exactly what it was doing, where it was, how you did it. So, you do not incorporate air, and that is a big step in keeping that foam down, because this crystallized or creamed honey is going to have a thicker consistency, much harder for any air bubbles to get out of it. You want to mix under the surface. You never want to break the surface when you are mixing with the dice process. And fill containers carefully. Again, do the tip, let it run down the side, and learn to bring it upright. And keep your containers cool, because if they get too warm, they'll get liquid. And sometimes they will separate out as sort of a cream sludge and liquid on top, and if that doesn't look awful, you leave it, you're a beekeeper. Chunk honey, we didn't get any this year, I don't know, I'll kind of gallop through chunk honey. But it means one piece of comb, good comb, not trash pieces of comb that you crammed in a jar and put liquid honey in, just to get rid of trash pieces of comb. So, fits jar from bottom to top. Liquid part, same as for the judging of liquid honey, and the comb has separate criteria. So, piece of comb, parallel cuts, no ragged edges, sharp, sharp, sharp knife. No watery cappings. Again, I'd like to get rid of that one. Absence of travel stain, bees have dirty feet. So, these are again for your chunk honey. Since there weren't any, I'll sort of gallop through them. A knife made with bandsaw steel is a wonderful knife for cutting comb, and you handle it with care. So again, I'm putting these up quickly, and
can you play back that one?
okay.
I'll run it down, I'm not that fast.
I think that's all in this one. Always remove phone, always, always, no matter what you're doing. Yeah, you can look at those, and here's a few things. Cleanliness, sweatshirt material, fuzzy side up, will remove everything from your wax. Yes. Use a thermometer when you're doing wax, my goodness. Let me fill this up, and then you can cool it gradually to keep the shrinkage down. Use a thermometer. Wax melts really quite low. 143 is usually when it starts to melt. There's a little difference there because it's not a uniform substance. So you can turn your oven on to its lowest, heat it up, turn it off, put your to-be wax block of liquid wax in the oven, shut the door, and go to bed. When you get up in the morning, it will cool gradually through the night. Good luck.
Just in case people wanted to look at it, is a first place winner from our honey show, if people wanted to see it. It was judged by Anne.
Okay, I will be around the rest of the day. I do have a talk later in the afternoon. So if you want to